Thank you, Rose. So it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Her name is Stephanie. She's right here. She's a senior technical writer with 25 years of experience in the security software sector. Her experience rolls deep. She began her career in technical support and transitioned to technical writing because she wanted to craft the information that customers and technical support teams need to succeed, something that is near and dear to pretty much all of our hearts. So without further ado, please take it away, Stephanie.
Hello. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. I also very much appreciate the wonderful environment that they have created here at Write the Docs. It's extremely accepting. So, why did I pick this topic? And the reason I'm sure many of you can identify with, it's because I walked into a shipwreck. That's an actual picture of me when I saw what I'd be working with. So we had an obsolete tool set. We were using Gitbook CLI, which, as you all know, Gitbook has deprecated many years ago. There were no updates or security fixes in years. A decision had been made to switch to Madcap Flare, and they had already started converting docs to HTML, but there was no management buy-in to purchase Madcap Flare and to, and to support the transition over to it. So very often the HTML docs were not rendering correctly. So we had a lot of broken pages, links that didn't work, just a lot of issues. We had also standardized on the Microsoft Style Guide, but it wasn't followed consistently. There was no internal style guide, no quality standards, no review processes, and no internal documentation on the docs process or even how to set up the tools. So that brings me to self-reflection. Oh, and by the way, when I chose this topic, I did not realize that Portland and the Columbia River, where it goes out to the Pacific Ocean, was called the graveyard of the Pacific. So it very much dovetailed into my speech. So 90% of the pictures that you'll see here are from the Portland area. This is the Hawthorne Bridge. But the topic is self-reflection. And why is this a topic in a docs presentation? Well, the reason is when you walk into a situation like this is not a standard 9-to-5 job. This is not I'll just go in and follow, what I'm supposed to do. You have to be creative, you have to be proactive, you have to put in a lot of effort. So you have to really think about, am I prepared to tackle this? Do I have the requisite skills, or am I prepared to learn them? It's going to be a wild ride, so you have to make sure that you are the type of person who is prepared to tackle and thrive when there's a lot of changes in an environment. When I started in my current role, we had another tech writer. We'll just call him B. He was a good role, but he was a good writer, but he had moved over from the training department and still had that same narrative style in the docs that he was creating, which does not fit in with the Microsoft Style Guide, as I'm sure most of you are aware. You're supposed to be clear, concise, and to the point, brief, above all. So B had no experience with CLI tools at all, had only used a Madcap Flare CMS DITA documentation environment, and yet the docs here were docs as code. So his skills were very mismatched to the tools that we had. His hope was that he could navigate us to a Madcap Flare toolset. But two things happened almost simultaneously. First of all, we realized Madcap Flare did not work on Macs, which was everything we had. And also that our main customer, our primary government customer, basically wanted to move all of their vendors to docs as code using MKDocs. And that pretty much sealed the deal for B. And his hope was sunk to move us to Madcap Flare, so he jumped ship. So that's why it's important for you to do that self-reflection, to decide if this really is a project you want to tackle. So what's in it for you with this presentation? So first, you're going to get Some skills to observe and critically evaluate the existing situation. You're going to devise a map, a plan to salvage your shipwreck. And you're going to get booty. That's what all of this is. Look at these amazing 3D printed pirate ducks. My boss did those. She's awesome. I've also got some t-shirts and some desk signs. There's going to be a few slides in here where I ask you all questions. And people who answer, who step up, will get booty. Yeah, that's the point where my 19-year-old daughter lost it and giggled. And all right, so you're also going to get a crew. One thing to realize, even when you're the sole tech writer, there is an environment. Right, Nicholas? There is an environment. There's an environment here. There's environments online. There is a community who can help support you. So even if you're a sole tech writer, don't despair. There's help out there. There's support. So, first step, you have to perform reconnaissance, right? You have to observe what the current situation is. It is never good practice to walk into a place and say, oh, you're doing that wrong. Oh, no, why are you doing that? Walk in first and observe. Walk in with a mindset to learn. Why are things the way they are? What roadblocks have they faced to having a functioning tool set or a functioning documentation site? So you're going to ruffle fewer feathers if you go in with that mindset than you are walking in and saying, you're doing everything wrong. Not everyone realizes they're in the midst of a shipwreck. So, you have to consider, for whom are you writing? Who is your audience? Are they internal or external? What needs do they have? What needs are being met? What needs aren't being met? And how, the needs that are being met, how are they being met? Next, you need to understand your assets. So you need to understand what tools you have, what you can leverage to get to your ideal. So you want to understand what tools are available. By the way, yes, my slides have very few bullet points. It's okay. I have the presentation up on GitHub. You can download it with the speaker notes. So don't worry, this information will be retained. You have to understand what tools are available, even if they're in use by another team. So do you need Snagit or Camtasia if you do any type of videos, or Adobe Pro? You know, are other teams using it? Marketing often has licenses. Maybe they have extra licenses you can use, and your team doesn't have to incur that cost. Do you want to keep your current docs infrastructure? Are your problems mainly about the content, or do they also include the infrastructure? Is your doc team adequately staffed? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say no. Nearly everybody's is critically understaffed. Do you have good relationships with other teams? So do you guys interface with product, with UX, with engineering, with your QA team? If those relationships are not good, then I highly recommend you fix that right away before you begin any other changes. I recommend bribes. Geek t-shirts are a favorite beverage, have always worked for me. All right, so you want to look at what is working and what is broken. That's actually the same ship in both pictures. So when you're looking at what's working and what's broken, you want to look at processes as well as tools. So while there are definitely going to be broken things, because that's why you're here, right? There also are going to be some things that are working well, and you want to retain those. You don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So for things that are broken, how much time is being spent working around those tools? Try to document that as much as possible. The more you can quantify that, the more you can use that to get management buy-in. Are the stakeholder needs that aren't being met increasing the work for other departments like tech support or sales? Is it blocking sales because you don't have the required documentation, or it's not up to date or not adequate? And for example, government contracts very frequently have very strict documentation requirements. It's mandatory. So are the unmet needs affecting customer satisfaction or impacting company image? So are they making your company look unprofessional? In my case, yes, they were. We had typos, we had broken links, we had all kinds of issues that needed addressing, and it made our team look, not very, we were not portrayed in the light that we should have been. So, and again, what about compliance and regulatory? If you're in any kind of security environment, which 90% of us are, there are very often compliance and regulatory things that you have to comply with in order for your company to be successful. So, what's missing? Which best practices are not being followed? Are you doing peer-end SME reviews? Do you have a style guide? Do you have internal documentation on your current processes and your current tools? When I walked into my role, there was zero documentation on how to set up Gitbooks, CLI, like the local environment. Zero documentation. Gitbooks had deprecated their documentation. I had to go to the Wayback Machine to find documentation for Gitbooks. So make sure that even if there's documentation, make sure you do some internal documentation on that stuff. It doesn't have to be recreating the documentation, but give the next person who joins behind you enough to get started on. Try to ease their transition. And what limitations are you facing? So, do you have budget limitations? Again, going to go out on a limb and say yes. Staff, skill gaps on your team, something to consider. If you're moving to a CLI environment, is everybody on your team ready for that? Are they willing to do that? Do you have tight deadlines, fast sprints, quickly changing product? We're in software, so yeah, pretty much. Do you have management or executive buy-in for these changes? Do you need engineering or DevOps help with making the changes? Very often your engineering team is already going to be overtaxed. Do you have cumbersome processes or steps in a long process that are just slowing you down and not providing much benefit? There's no return on doing these steps, so why are we doing them? Question everything when you're going through this evaluation process. And do you have tools that you're not getting enough value from? Are you guys paying for licenses that you rarely ever use, or maybe only one person on the team uses them? Don't renew all three. So, time to earn some booty. The first ones are a document it or it didn't happen little desk sign. And I have some pins that also say document it or it didn't happen. So, yes, I have swag in here. So the first question is, identify some other best practices you've discovered that weren't being followed and who you made walk the plank. Who wants to take that one?
Hello. So for this, go ahead and just come to me or raise your hand and I can go to you. And we're going to do a bit of a handoff between the booty and me and you.
Don't be shy.
Come on, participate. I know y'all have some similar experiences.
One more time, hand. Oh, thank you. One moment.
Peer reviews were not happening. I
Yes.
didn't make anyone walk the plank, though. I just said, hey, let's do this. And
Missed opportunity.
Thank you. Yes.
PM's letting you know that products are ready to go live.
On the day they're ready to go live, right? Yeah, where are your docs? You didn't tell me I needed any. Any more? Over here and back there?
Keep the hands up. That way I can tell who to give things to, as well as who to... Oh, let me throw it on the ground first. For the folks on YouTube, nothing happened. And then... Oh. One more time. Where was that hand? Okay. Closing my rings, getting my steps in.
So we had a best practice that you had to have a tech writer review a PR that had docs. And some people just wouldn't tag us, so we made tech writers be owners of anything that was a markdown file. Now you have to. So.
We did something similar. We had an automated process create JIRA tickets because we weren't being notified when features were coming out.
Engineering folks weren't being all that helpful with supporting us with necessary intermediate tooling to generate open API definitions. And I made them walk the plank by hard forking and owning those docs and writing them by hand. And so now they have to let us know every time that anything changes so we can update those docs manually.
Awesome, I love it. Anyone else? I think there was one towards the middle. One here. We also have some pirate ducks if we run out of the other things.
I was given the task to update a paging system that had not been updated in 12 years, and there was no documentation besides what we were given at the beginning of the project. And the person who was in charge of updating it had simply not done it and then left the company. So what I did was I called the people who managed the software and who initially sold it to us and did a bunch of training, brought folks from my team over to do the training, and we just built the documentation from scratch.
Yep. Significant challenges to overcome, right?
We switched to a new documentation platform about 2 years ago and got rid of our internal documentation. I am a support writer, not the main technical writer, of which our company only has one. And last week I had to ask him for a style guide. Turns out it was deleted when we got rid of the internal wiki, so we don't have one anymore.
Well, luckily, I'll go into that in a little bit, but the best way to address that is to take one that already exists and just add on whatever changes you need to make for your company.
I hand back there.
All right, this will be our last one because we do need to move on.
I made myself walk the plank last year.
You did that self-reflection, right?
Yeah, well, I was working as an engineer, and one of my coworkers was trying to do a process which I hadn't documented very well, and it broke. And they paged me in the middle of lunch, and I missed the lightning talks because I had to fix the thing I didn't document right.
Well, that's a lesson, right? You learned from it, hopefully. Okay. So, now we're going to draw your map, your way to get away from the shipwreck. So you have a list of what's broken, what's working, what's missing, what limitations, and what tools are in use, what assets you have. So all of that you're going to take and feed into the next phase, which is time to chart your dock's future. This is an actual treasure map from Portland. It's from like the 1860s. Very cool, right? So you have a couple choices when you decide how you're going to organize your documentation structure. One classic way is with information architecture. There's a link there to the Write the Docs information architecture. I'll give you guys a minute to scan it if you choose. The next screen's going to have a bunch more QR codes, but again, all this is going to be online, so don't feel like you have to. All right. So, some other resources. Information Architecture is for Everybody by Abby Covert. How to Make Sense of Any Mess. That's a free online ebook, but please contribute if you find it valuable. What is Information Architecture by Figma, and that one also has templates. And Everyday Information Architecture by Lisa Maria Marquis. All right. I think everyone who wanted it has got it. There's also Diataxis. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. I think I might have seen an unconference session on this. We're just actually starting to learn about this and discussing whether this is something we want to move to. So we did not do any of these methods. We did my favorite. We plundered ideas and examples. So my favorite thing is to go out and look at other people's docs and say, yeah, that works great. No, I'm not a fan of that. So these are two resources that you can use to do the same. Awesome Docs has some great doc site examples, including API docs. They have style guide examples, so lists of style guides. While you're perusing these examples and while you're on these pages that have links to things like style guides and templates and best practices, it's time to have that discussion about your style guide. So it's far easier to pick one that most closely matches your ideals, and then for your internal style guide, just document the changes from that. So in our case, we kept with the Microsoft Style Guide and just documented some internal things that we are changing in the Microsoft Style Guide. So what puts the wind in your sails? What's your ideal documentation tool set? So if you have a small team and limited time, you might want to consider sticking with a solution that does not require you to convert your docs. If your docs are already in HTML, look for a solution that uses HTML docs. Or you want to look for one with a conversion that can be easily automated. You have very limited time. You do not want to get stuck up on the conversion process. Here are some documentation tools. These are the open source ones. I'm sure most of you are familiar with these. We decided to go with MKDocs and Material, and we have found that very sufficient and as fully featured as we could want. Whenever we run into a roadblock, I go look for a plugin, and chances are I find a fix. So, but there are plenty of other options. Hugo I've used in the past. That worked well as well. Some of these are a little more specialized. But yeah, these are the open source options, and these are the commercial ones. And you'll notice a couple of our sponsors on here. Okay, we're back to more booty. So if y'all can, name your favorite static site generator and why it's your favorite. Anyone? Oh, you're okay. You're okay. It's only 2 slides, I promise. There you go.
We got Jerome, you're good, you got it. All right, who said DocuSource?
And why did you go with DocuSource?
Because I worked with Meta at the time, and then it was easy to use because I knew it. It's very easy to spin up and make pretty.
That's one of the reasons we went with MKDocs as well. Yeah. Ease of use is definitely a prime factor to consider.
Folks on the internet, that was Meta, right? Okay. For folks on the internet, that was Meta.
Oh, we got someone in the back raising their hand. If anyone in the balcony wants to contribute, just raise your hand and you may have to speak out and we'll get you your booty later. She said she's not throwing a t-shirt that far.
Yeah, I'm an engineer, so I like to make it for like simple sites, but the best part about 11T is if you go to their website, the button for their docs is huge, and I love that. So like you immediately know where to go to find out how to build it.
Yeah, we're often hidden behind a few menus, aren't we? Yeah. Good to get us out in front.
We also use MKDocs and Material, and one of my favorite things about working with an open source software is the community that is built around it. You have any questions, someone has tried to implement it, someone is there to help you, and having those resources for a very affordable cost makes it very, very easy to produce high quality documentation and solve problems that come up.
Absolutely. We recently became a sponsor of Material because we wanted to use one of their insider plugins. So yeah, I completely agree. I'm also working on a sponsorship program for our company so we can help support the open source companies that we use their software from. Yeah.
+1 for MKDocs and Material, and I like it because of all the available plugins there are.
Yeah, if you run into a problem with MKDocs, chances are there's a plugin for it. Recent ones we've implemented include auto-refs, and we're also using macros for variables and what they call includes, which are snippets. So those are solving, content reuse, and the auto-refs actually are making our links more resilient because instead of using MKDocs or Markdown links to other documentation, we're linking to a tag that we've added. And so we can rename a file or move a file, and it won't break our links. That was a huge pain point for us. All right. I think I will spare them from any further booty assignments. So how do you go from shipwreck to smooth sailing? This is a ship that actually went aground right here in the Columbia River, and they got it back in the ocean. So what do you need to make your ideal happen? And whose approval do you need? Don't forget that step. If it's open source, you possibly need some DevOps or engineering support for the CI/CD pipeline. If it's commercial, you're going to need budget approval. And you also may need at least to notify, if not to work closely with product, tech support, and marketing. So make sure you have approval up your reporting structure for the upgrade, for any needed time from other teams, and for any necessary purchases, such as a commercial tooling solution. Next, you have to consider, when am I going to do this? So what is your current and expected docs workload? Is there a time when you anticipate you're going to have a gap in that workload where you could slip in your upgrades? Consider your dev cycle status and customer requirements. I'm going to have to speed up here a little bit because I think I'm running out of time. So it's likely that all of your existing docs are not complete rubbish. They may be bloated, disorganized, or outdated, but there's going to be some gems amidst that wreckage. Clean them out, clean them up, find those gems, keep them there. So while you're planning your future ideal doc structure, keep up with your current future documentation. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. You all know how to do that. I'll assume if you're here, you know. Improve what you have now. So how do you do that part? That part I do have some thoughts on. And I apologize, I was going to make some changes to the graphic on this and didn't get to it, so this might be a little messy. So if your docs, like mine, were very massive, tidal wave-sized walls of text, it's time to start breaking them up. And for me, I used AI to help with that. So I asked AI to retain the technical details in the text, but revise it for clarity and brevity. And usually that resulted in what I needed. Of course, I reviewed it, made tweaks. In some cases, I had to add back in facts. But in general, that was super effective at helping me pare down the docs into the essentials. Review carefully, of course, and we also used AI to convert the 35% of our docs that had been converted to HTML to convert them back to Markdown. So AI was extremely effective at that. Definitely, if you need to do any type of syntax editing, leverage AI. There's another QR code. Again, these will all be up in my GitHub. You'll have a link to that in just a moment. So, you're overtaxed. You're already documenting features. You are going to want to go in, and as one of my teammates, Jennifer, said, want to go into every doc and just improve them all. But you can't. You will burn yourself out. You will not have time to complete all of that. So, what can you do? If you're documenting a small feature, fix the paragraphs where that feature is. Improve those. Documenting a larger feature, improve the entire document. If you find a term in a document that you're working on that is contrary to your style guide, for example, Microsoft Style Guide says not to use may, and I came across may a lot in the docs. So I did a global find replace for might. So these are ways that you can incrementally improve your content without overtaxing yourself. And you can do that even while you're waiting to do the upgrades that you hope for. So other ideas, same as any type of project that you need to devote time to. You want to dedicate maybe a day a week to docs improvement. A week a day, yeah. That would be a nice ratio, right? But if you can't dedicate a day, half a day, an hour, half an hour, whatever progress you can make is better than standing still. Remember the tortoise, tenacity wins the race. All right, so we are at the summary. These are some of the very few bullet points. So you're going to observe, list the assets, working and broken tools and processes, look at what's missing, consider your limitations, then chart your ideal. Where do you want to end up? Look at your doc structure, your tooling, your pros. As you plan your upgrade, keep in mind upgrade approval, budget, other affected departments, and help from other teams for the upgrade. And also keep in mind timing. One thing I did not touch on earlier was when I was at SSH, the company, not OpenSSH. People who've been in security for a long time will understand that distinction. I was there for 10 years, and early on in our commercial product, we released a product. Hold on. Our headquarters was in Finland, and for those of you who don't know, the month of July is the entire country of Finland goes on vacation. There is literally nobody there. Like, I flew into Helsinki one time in July, and it was like walking through a ghost town. There's nobody there. So we made the mistake of releasing a new version end of June, and then all of our developers went on vacation. And of course, I'm in tech support at the time. Of course, I immediately get 2 emails from 2 different universities who had found a major security bug in the version we released. And I'm talking a default Linux configuration could cause someone to be able to get into a remote system by just pressing the spacebar. That's how bad it was. So when you do your upgrade, think about your timing carefully. Do not plan it right before your entire dev team goes on vacation. And also keep in mind the help you're going to need from other teams. Try not to plan it during their busy seasons as well. And tenacity wins the race. So again, keep documenting new features, make incremental improvements wherever you can, chunk your content for better content retention. I mean, we don't want pages with just one sentence on them, but break it up. Plenty of studies have shown that people retain content better when it's chunked up. And use AI to revise for clarity, brevity, and format. All right. That is my LinkedIn profile and my GitHub repo, where you can find a PDF of this with the speaker notes that were not on screen. Thanks all. And I might get kicked off before I can do this, but there are 4 slides of image attributions. So yeah, I'm giving credit where credit's due. Thank you all.
We have about 5 minutes for Q&A.
Before you said for the Q&A. Oh, forgot about that part. I'm going to leave this up then.
Yep. Feel free to join me over here whenever you're ready. It's time to get grilled.
Ooh, yay.
All right. Nothing too spicy, I promise.
Good, I don't like spicy.
Just helpful. So the first question, and the one with the most upvotes, is how do you mitigate or manage expectations when your doc tools are chosen by external or non-doc stakeholders?
Ooh, yeah, that's definitely a difficult situation, especially when you aren't making that choice and you're the one who has to live with it. What I would do is evaluate how that's going to fit into your processes and just be very transparent. What is that beeping?
Don't know where that's coming from.
Okay.
Sorry, that's very distracting.
Yeah, it is. Sorry.
Is that our stuff?
Oh, it's telling me I'm too talkative.
Just start pushing buttons. Sorry, okay, we'll try to focus. Apologies, guys, people.
Yeah, so what I would do is, define how you think that's going to fit into your workflow. And what impact it's going to have on the output that you can do. Is it going to slow you down? Is it going to mean that your documentation is going to take a lot longer? Be very clear in communicating those impacts, and I think that can help the most as far as possibly trying to move them to a tooling set that fits you better.
Thank you for that. This one, I think, this is a really good question. So any suggestions on planning, prioritizing, or scheduling releases when overhauling a docs site, especially if you are a docs team of one, which is rough?
Yeah. After B left the company, I was a doc team of one for a few months, and then my colleague John joined us. What you have to do, first of all, you have to keep your docs in a working state, right? You can't start making changes that are going to bring down your docs process and make it unusable for the foreseeable future. So make your changes as you normally would, but as I said, just try to incrementally every day, just do something that improves your docs while you're doing the normal workload of documenting features and fixes and release notes.
Thank you for that advice. Ooh, I like this one a lot. This is a newcomer into the list. How do you decide whether you should be the one fixing the shipwreck or if it's somebody else's shipwreck?
Well, yeah. I think in most cases, if you're walking into it, it's going to be someone else's shipwreck. That is that self-reflection slide that I had there. So you need to decide if you're willing to tackle this. And if you're not, if you're the sole technical writer, then it might be time to find a different role where you're not having to tackle a mess like that. Obviously, that's not the ideal for the company you're at now, but that might be the reality. You may not be the best fit. If you have trepidations, if you don't feel like you're up to the challenge, do yourself and the company a solid and find another role.
Yeah, sometimes it is okay to just exit the ship.
Yeah, it totally is. And sometimes that will teach the company also that, we need to make this a priority. We need to give it the time, attention, budget, staffing that it needs to fix this issue.
Right on. So let's see, there's a question here about if you have videos as part of your documentation, how do you go about updating them?
Yes, we do, and this is a very timely topic. We just got a new member on our team, Jennifer. She's back there, I assume, or somewhere. Jen?
I saw a wave.
Jen is going to be helping us update those videos because we have not been able to give them the time and attention that they need because we've been working on our docs infrastructure updates and improving our documentation. So we have had to let those slide for now, but I think we're at a point where we are ready to start addressing those. We're more in a maintenance mode on the docs.
I think we have time for about one more. So I'm going to ask this very important question about, do you have any tips for convincing management not to throw away the style guide? This questioner says, ours feels it's not worth keeping, but the tech writers feel otherwise.
Who is the style guide affecting? If the tech writers want it and management wants to get rid of it, why? Find out why they want to get rid of it. Like, are you trying to enforce it on other teams? You may not be able to do that. But as far as making the case for documentation, it's consistency. It's about looking professional in front of your customers, and that should be everybody's goal.
Like, understand, what you're fighting for and what you're fighting against. So
I mean, you're fighting against chaos, Really, you are. Because, if you have 3 people on your team, chances are their opinions, their experiences will lead them to 3 different destinations. And having a style guide is really a way of converging that and agreeing on those options in advance so that you all end up in the same place.
Final question, and I'm sorry, but I have to do this. Favorite pirate, real or fictional?
Well, definitely the fictional ones, because they haven't harmed anybody.
That's a good answer. Thank you very much. This was a wonderful talk.
Thank you. Thank you.